One story I'd love to share about trying to do what's best for the customer happened in my last role at Heap. We were trying to re-engage users who lapsed in the product. We tried newsletters, advanced use cases, offering new features. What really resonated the most with them was those basic skills, the exact same basic use cases to get value from the product. We teach new users. That was a big surprise to us. We tried to be very intentional with our messaging and our A/B testing. We didn't have tons of feature-driven messaging, but we had a bit of use that because we want you to use it. The messaging, changing, flipping that on its head and have it be messaging oriented around the value prop totally made our open rates and click rates skyrocket. The amount that the campaigns were actually getting the users to use the features. It's so ironic. Telling them to use the feature backfires, but telling them, hey, I'm going to help you build a chart in 2 minutes flat that's going to get you the business insights. We know what we want as a business, but seriously, what do the customer want at this moment has paid off for us.
Spotlight, brought to you by CS in Focus, where we refine customer success, uniting GTM teams across North America.
Hello, everyone. I'm here with Holly Goodliffe, the customer digital CS strategist. Welcome, Holly.
Thank you, Anna. It's great to see here.
A little background about Holly. She has built digital customer success function 3 times in a row, from Adobe to top startups. She's well known for her strategic, data-driven approach. She focused on maximizing SaaS retention through automation, laser focus on ONE KPI, which I'm going to ask her later. What is that ONE KPI? Very interesting. And of course, in digital CS, you have heavy collaborate with marketing, product, sales. And I'm really interested to this particular episode to deep dive about digital CS with Holly.
Thank you, Emma.
Holly, how did you get into the digital CS field? Can you describe your journey to us?
Yeah, that's a great question. I feel like everybody in digital CS came from different directions. This function had one thing existed for long. I came from marketing. I found that demand generation wasn't as exciting as the long-term engagement and retention process. I always gravitated toward that side, but we didn't call it digital CS back then. Officially, 3 years ago, my role started sitting in CS rather than marketing. I love sitting in CS where we talk about retention all the time.
You mentioned digital CS right now sitting under CS, right? Under marketing. In your opinion, where should this function really sit?
It's a great question. I get this one a lot. I have sat in both worlds, right? My feeling is it can sit in either place and it do really well. I see it work well at different companies in either place. When it sits in marketing, it tends to be called lifecycle marketing or customer marketing, but has a lot of the same components of what we call digital CS in a CS org. The part that can be tricky, marketers tend to be KPI'd on how well they're generating lead, and CS focused on generating renewal revenue, right? How well they're getting customers to retain. We're all going to gravitate toward doing the type of comms that we're getting rewarded for. The best of both worlds is for those teams to be working together, for marketing to have more of a slant on how are we upselling and cross-selling and working on expansion for the customer. And with scaled CS, working on how are we enabling the customer to succeed with the products they already purchased. Both of those things need to fit together and are crucial for the customer to actually be healthy and renew. That is the golden formula, if you can have both. But if your organization's different and all of that sits in marketing or all of that sits in CS, I think that's great as long as it's coordinated between one customer calendar, not different teams doing different things they don't know about.
In your opinion, managing that?
Again, I feel like it doesn't matter. I've been on teams where marketing has owned it. I've been on teams where digital CS has owned it. What matters is that everybody buys into it and plays by the rules. What you don't want is for people to be like, sure, I'll use this calendar, but really I'm going to do my own thing. You want everybody committed. This is a win for my org. And we all just want to do what's best for the customers. We don't want to send 2 blasts on the same day from different teams. How can we agree if the other team wants to own it? I'm like, cool, you own it. If the other team wants to be in charge of the KPI, I'll let the other team do it. All being on the same page to serve the customer is much more important than my team getting to them.
What works for the customer, right? Do you have a customer story to share on why this is important to you?
One story I'd love to share about trying to do what's best for the customer happened in my last role at Heap. We were trying to re-engage users who lapsed in the product. We tried newsletters, advanced use cases, offering new features. What really resonated the most with them was those basic skills, the exact same basic use cases to get value from the product. We teach new users. That was a big surprise to us. We tried to be very intentional with our messaging and our A/B testing. We didn't have tons of feature-driven messaging, but we had a bit of like, use that because we want you to use it. The messaging, changing, flipping that on its head and have it be messaging oriented around the value prop totally made our open rates and click rates skyrocket. The amount that the campaigns were actually getting the users to use the features. It's like so ironic. It's like telling them to use the feature backfires, but telling them, hey, I'm going to help you build the chart in 2 minutes flat. That's going to get you the business insights you need to do a good job. Suddenly, I want to click it, right? We've had experiences like that where we keep thinking, we know what we want as a business, but seriously, what do the customer want at this moment has paid off for us. That re-engagement campaign ended up being so important to the company that every quarter we ran it, it was automated to any user who hadn't used in 90 days, be it a super active account or an inactive account. We would find that about 40% of the accounts we were targeting would become active again, which is a huge hit rate when you're talking about just responding to an email as an inactive customer. It's doing what the customer needs and wants always pays.
I love what you mentioned about running this re-engagement campaign every quarter. And who had this
was always on
digital CS. We didn't start talking in calls 2 years ago, or it had become like a big moment. I'm guessing getting this question a lot. Like, where do you start?
I get that question all the time from CCOs, from CF leaders, just like, where do I start? People think I'm going to be able to give them some kernel of 30 seconds. That's super helpful. I can't boil it down that small because there are several components that I think you have to have in place to do it well. Over the last few months, I've started having a checklist. Here are the 9 things that you need to be thinking about. You need to know the business need to move forward with starting a digital CS. Is that helpful?
Maybe let's start there.
Every company, every person has slightly different definitions. I think of digital CS as any digital channel you're using, be it a push channel or a pull channel, that is helping your customers self-serve and be enabled at scale to succeed in the product. Channels would be your pull channels, digital community, customer education platform, help center, in-app resource center. Push channels, launching campaigns to customers in-app or via email or both. I think of scale as being even a little bigger than that. One way is through digital CS, but then the other big way folks are doing scaled CS is rethinking how they take care of their lowest tier of customers when it comes to low ARR. What is that strategy? Is it going to be a pooled model, a high ratio model? Are you going to rely on digital with no human touch? The scaled piece includes what are we going to do about that lowest tier, their human touch?
Let's do it.
Our preferred tier definition of it, or do you have a food definition?
It's almost like communication, right? You can get from newspaper, cell phone, or social media.
Yeah.
It's just it's a channel or method how you're delivering the message.
And human is one of your channels through a human who is your CFM.
Yes, that's for sure.
And the first thing that I try to encourage people to think through is, what is your goal for launching a digital CS function? I feel like tons of leaders right now, they've heard digital CS can be great. They've heard about helping other companies cut costs. And they're just like, yeah, sign me up. But what is your actual goal? Not every company has the same goal for how digital CS is going to help their business. The goal of all CS is to help customers get value with the product, so they want to stay when they're new. That should be the bottom line. You could say that's the goal of starting a digital CS program. But I think it's helpful as a leader if you think through like, okay, but what's your hypothesis of what does the business need more of in order to increase those renewals? Is it that every account needs a bit more air cover on how to use the products more efficiently? Are your usage numbers low? Or is it that you actually are thinking about digital CS wanting to hire renewal managers who are sending communications more often about why you should renew? For most companies I talk to, the goal is to increase product health and usage, because at most companies, that's correlated to improvement to renew. And that's something you hone well digitally. But I'm surprised by how many folks I talk to who cannot answer that question of why are you interested in launching a digital CS function? I think it's really important to ask that before you next step.
Like you mentioned, why use AI just because it's a hot topic? Why people are moving into PLG? Is it really company needs that, or you have the infrastructure to set that up? That's a very good question. Start with the why behind every motion or project you want to go forward.
A lot of times they start asking, which channel should I use? How should I structure it? I don't know until I know your goal. Tell me your goal and we talk about the rest. The next thing I ask is, do you know the happy path for users using your product when they're new? A lot of times where you start with building digital CS is enabling that onboarding process. Do you have on paper all the leaders agreeing on the happy path? I often get companies telling me there are a million ways for customers to succeed, and we don't want to be too prescriptive. We've been arguing about this for months, haven't agreed internally. Those are big challenges you have to solve first before you can make digital touch points. How can you build a good onboarding journey until you have a point of view on the initial use cases new users should be doing? The way you get that is by looking at your data of who's succeeding. You should have a clear perspective on the simplest way that we want new users to learn how to do it, and then they can veer off later. You need to know what your happy path is to know if users are veering off and how to get them back on. Digital CS throughout the customer journey is so much about using data to identify, are they doing well on that path or are they not? And when they get off, I'm going to get them back on the path. In order to do that, you've got to know your path. Get your leaders together and have that perspective. Maybe you start out with your happy path as simply, we want them to use every new feature. I want them to adopt that best feature. But then you got to figure out, is that actually what's going to increase their active usage, which will increase their renewal? You want to do everything in service of increasing renewal and GRR, not just because it's a nice thing we can do. So I think lots of us, if digital CX can fall into that trap. There are a million things we can do, but to know what the highest ROI and what's going to move the needle, you need to know that happy path. You need to know what is the goal. Otherwise, you're going to get muddled quickly.
And what is the KPI?
I love it. Has your company done some correlation analysis to understand what KPIs are correlated to renewal and expansion? It's highly correlated that if you can increase usage or health score, then you're increasing likelihood to renew. Why do we need that KPI? If you have a speedy renewal process, like monthly or weekly, then you don't need another KPI. The problem is in SaaS, we've got single year or multi-year contracts.
No.
Those are lagging metrics. We can't see how well we're doing. We need a leading indicator correlated to renewal and expansion. If they're using your product more, they're likely getting more value out of it. The fact that users are choosing to come back week after week or day after day gives you a pretty good inkling that they're getting value from this thing. If an account has 0 weekly active users, they're in bad shape and they're probably not going to renew with you. If you can get everybody in your company to align on this, it simplifies digital CS so much. A common mistake is every campaign trying to move a different metric or get them to use a different feature. It just gets very confusing very fast. Digital CS should be about moving the needle on that metric. You need to measure that fast to pivot where needed. It's all about testing and iteration. If every time I'm measuring a campaign, I'm like reinventing the wheel of exactly how am I measuring whether my user's successful. It's kind of nearsighted if you're in closed innovation. Best practice North Star metric for digital CS is increasing that active usage metric. One thing I'll say is just saying that they logged into a product. Lots of SaaS companies, that is their active usage metric. They logged in or viewed any page. Great start, but not long-term. I would take it further, make a combo event of all the actions in there that they can do in the product that shows they get value. Or maybe you have the type of product where we were able to boil it down to one action, viewing a chart. Any value you could get from the product would be from viewing a chart, either a chart you'd made yourself or that somebody else made, whether you're viewing a dashboard, whether it's a funnel, whatever type of chart, that's how you're getting value. So we were able to streamline it in that way. At Conference where I lead now, we have a combo of different things they can do in the product that could get them value. This is crucial. I think a lot of people underestimate how important it is to have your company aligned on how we define active usage. Have we done the correlation analysis to make sure it is correlated to renewal and expansion? If not, you better be tweaking it. Your active usage metrics should be accurately predicting renewals. That opens up cross-functional initiatives where product and CS are working together. Imagine that. Reviewing these metrics every week and saying, how have we moved the needle? Let me give an example. You also want a threshold with your active usage. Decide whether your product is used daily, weekly, or monthly. So let's say it should be used weekly. We're going to look at the data, find thresholds of how many weekly active users I need to have in my product for this account to be likely to renew. When you look at the data, you're going to find some inflection points. One is obviously going to be from 0 to 1 weekly active user. Going from 0 to 1 is going to make it more likely that they'll renew. And you're going to see that in the data. Then there are going to be other inflection points. From 3 to 4, a big jump in likelihood to renew is 10 to 11, etc. And then you can actually make goals across your orgs. Let's say getting them to 4 weekly active users is just such an unlock, just makes their likelihood to renew so much higher. Then you can work together, including digital CS on a campaign. We're doing whatever it takes to get this account over that line of at least 4 weekly active users. So that's how it can be really powerful for your company. There are some companies that it just doesn't make sense for your product to measure active usage exactly like that. In those cases, I recommend using health score, whatever you use for your health scoring, which should be very correlated to likelihood to renew. It's not that you've got other problems.
I have I have a question about, I'm guessing you also segment your users, right? Based on where they at. Is there any human intervention in there anywhere, or are you purely running digitally?
Yeah, great question. There are companies these days who are building digital CS and they aren't building a human component at all, especially if they're PLG and self-serve driven. Most companies I see are doing some mixture of digital and human. The journey should be well coordinated. Whatever I'm sending digitally should match very well with my onboarding journey to new accounts. Should really match very well with what they're hearing from the humans helping them set up their implementation. It's important to map out the digital and the human journey across time. How are they fitting together? Once you have that journey and you're following it, there isn't tons of coordination needed, like on a frequent basis between what are those humans doing and what are those digital doing, because they're supporting each other. Digital is providing lots of air cover, trying to catch any customers who are willing to be caught by self-serve, use or seek out resources through pull channel. Obviously, that's just going to be a percentage of the users. So then you're going to have a percentage of the users who are caught with digital and want help. I feel like the air cover model works pretty well. They do have to be more coordinated, where you actually want to do a digital campaign first, and then the CTA is talk to your CSM about this, or we want the CSM to follow up at a specific moment. And those are harder to coordinate. It's like getting everybody to obey. The CSMs own their bigger business and they want to do their thing. It takes a lot of buy-in to get CSMs to cooperate and trust that it's all going to fit together well. And you can do that in a couple ways. It can be that we want them to follow up on a generic message from the company that looks like it's coming from Content Square or the education team at Content Square. Or it can be that the digital team is leveraged to send emails that look like they came from the CSM. And then we want the CSM to follow up on that. We want the CSM to embrace it as if this email came from them. Lots of buy-in needed to do those types of campaigns.
I love how you said collaboration.
That's one of the questions I do ask is how does digital fit together with human for all tiers? But then specifically for that lowest tier, what's your plan? Are you going to have a pooled model or a high ratio model entirely supported by digital for your digital CS strategy? I'm not an advocate for doing digital CS only for the lowest tier. Digital CS helps all tiers, but you got to be thinking about the needs of that lowest tier as you build so that you make sure you're taking care of your most vulnerable customers. Huge customers being handheld every step of the way shouldn't be your most crucial audience.
When running different campaigns, it's hard to attribute what actually works. So having a clear lane of what's happening is really important. Because
Yes.
yeah.
And that's where I've seen it go well when you actually do have cross-functional initiatives and where you're actually meeting weekly to look at the numbers. Then it's not a mystery. We saw the number go up because we launched this campaign. Attribution is always tough. You can stagger things to guess which campaign lifted that number.
You talk about the KPIs, like what the why behind. Is there other things that we get asked most of the time? It's like what method or tools?
I talk a lot about something that a lot of folks don't think about in order to do well with digital. You need good, reliable customer data. So you need that for a couple reasons to trigger and target your campaigns to specific audiences. If I want this campaign to go only to folks whose job function is product manager, e-com companies, or only to customers who haven't already done this thing that I'm telling them to do, right? If I'm telling them like, use the journey feature for your first time and they've already used it that week, I need that data to target a push campaign. You need that exact same customer data, user usage data to see the impact of your campaign. This is super important in digital CS. Measure your opens and your clicks. That's great. Of your emails or of your in-app guide or how well they complete the 5-step. Those are great directional metrics that help you see whether your message is resonating, whether you're moving in the right direction. Super useful for A/B testing. But that's not the KPI. Opens and clicks is not the KPI. Emma, what's the KPI? The KPI we should actually be measuring and caring the most about is active usage. For every email, in-app guide, or workshop I lead, it's nice to know how many people clicked, how many opened, but what's really important is how many people did I get to go into the product, use the product, because that is the goal. Accurate user usage data to see how much it's impacting them. You need each user's data matched to their account. Hopefully that's table stakes, but lots of transitions. I'm at a company now that like we're bringing 3 companies together and we've got data coming from every direction. It can be a challenge to make sure all that data is mapped accurately over time. Remember, we care most about renewal. We don't just care about usage at the user level. We care about how much are we impacting it at the account level? Are we getting them above that threshold an account needs to get to in order to be likely to renew? And then that's what's actually going to bring in the money for the company. You need all that data accurate and ready to go. You also need to have your user data sitting in the same place as your campaign data. That's hard for a lot of companies to pull up. So a lot of companies are pulling their campaign data of who received, opened, and clicked from a Marketo or from a GameSite journey orchestrator or from a HubSpot or from a Pendo. And then the actual usage data is coming from a whole nother place. They're needing to manually stitch them together. That can be okay to get started with your first couple of campaigns, but I've done it and it's painful. What you need is for that data to flow into the same place, whether it's a data lake, a BI tool that you're using to envision it, or whether it's a like actual product analytics tool. I've seen it done lots of different ways, but you want that data to be coming together automatically so you can quickly see the impact of your campaigns. These are the data challenges people don't think of when they're like, let me just start a digital CS function tomorrow. You're going to have trouble measuring the impact of that team until you get a few things hooked up.
If you start your digital CS team, as you did, how would you structure your team?
I can tell you what I've done, which is that I have campaign managers, or we call them scaled CS managers, who handle everything for their area of responsibility. So you could split up that area of responsibility by product, persona, or by phase in the life cycle, where you have one member of the team focused on onboarding, another on re-engagement and new product releases. It works well to have one person do everything from strategy and the collaboration with the product team, the product marketers, and the customer education team to launching that campaign in the tool and then iterating. I see some companies split up the roles of like builders versus strategists. The reason I prefer to have them combined is so much of the strategy of digital CS is in the proof inside. You're actually doing it. Iterating is a lot faster to learn. That person is the one looking at the data afterwards and being like, okay, I need to tweak it in this way, and then launching another version. On my current team, we have 3 companies and products coming together, which is awesome. we have so much data that I have a full-time ops person. If you're in a time of huge data transition, like my company, that's best practice. Otherwise, we would just be bottlenecked right and left. But because we have a full-time ops person, that is his job to stay on top of where all the data sources, stay on top of if any of them have changed. It's like, oh, the campaigns just got messed up. So you got to stay on top of that in a time of huge change. When I was at Adobe, we didn't have ops people. The campaign managers were in charge of all that data. I built my teams. I see other companies doing really cool things. The thing about digital CS is most of the functions within it are not new. They already exist at the company. They're just not together. You have the option when you're trying to start a digital CS function, and this is going to be different from company to company. Is it going to work best to actually pull those existing people, like my customer education person, my community manager, my lifecycle marketer who's sitting in marketing, into one official team? Or is it going to be more of an unofficial cross-functional team where only the head of the digital CS team is actually sitting in CS and everybody else is sitting in their respective places, but you're just working closely together? That's another model that can work. We're just getting started with digital CS and trying to prove the value of bringing these functions together. What's crucial is everybody on that cross-functional Tiger team has the same KPI. If the lifecycle marketer is still sitting in marketing, can you convince the CMO or whoever that the KPI they're trying to move should be active usage? That can be hard. Education, can you convince them that should be their KPI, active usage, rather than number of certifications? It's a lot of pulling together teams who have been thinking in a siloed way to be like, can we just think about this all together of how are we getting our users to understand how to use the product better and use it more?
That each team have KPIs, but we're all here for understanding how customers are using, increase product usage, and so on. So that's definitely the first meeting.
Besides, none of this is easy. A lot of alignment is needed to make digital CS work well.
The first call should be calling that alignment meeting. So it's just for this.
Exactly. And so many people skip that call and just try to be like, what's our first campaign going to be? Your folks are not on the same page. You're not ready until you have those conversations.
You talk about a lot of channels, right? What's your opinion about in-app communication channels for digital CS?
I use all the ones like that. I think email and in-app guides are extremely powerful. And my teams use them in all kinds of ways. It's also powerful to have your pull channel of digital community, documentation or help center, whatever you want to call it, in-app resource guide, customer education platform are the big ones. For the most part, the way I've seen it split is have your digital CS team especially focused on those push campaigns. It's incredibly powerful to use in-app guides and email together. My team has tested lots of different things, both at Content Square and past companies. Something that worked really well with our customers at Heap was we would serve them up what we called an entry point. We could have an entry point in email and an entry point in app, so they could choose which one they wanted. If they've already clicked on an email, we would stop showing the in-app one. The CTA is something like, in 2 minutes, we want to show you how to generate this chart that's going to show you where your users are dropping off the funnel. It's going to help you optimize your business. It takes them to an in-app flow that walks them through a few steps. We felt that was a key part of our secret sauce. We're trying to get users into the UI, but once there, we didn't want to just drop them. We wanted to walk you through your first time doing this. Immediate gratification was what we were going for. Super low barrier to entry. We were trying to make it as simple as possible. Then once they've gotten through that first one, we give them more resources. Right. Now try doing it this way or that way. I think in-app guides are crucial for customers in the tool. An in-app guide can get their attention. You can use a beacon or whatever other way you want that doesn't interrupt their workflow. And then for customers who aren't in the tool as much as you want them to be, then email the super often entry point that once they click on it, you can take them right into the in-app guide. Now, following up on what you said about collaboration with other teams, then in-app guides can be quite difficult. The main parties I usually see arguing over ownership are product managers, product marketers, and digital CS. Talks need to be had. My feeling is you want all three teams involved. You don't want to alienate anybody or be like, digital CS is just taking this. Like, I'm totally cool. You keep the ownership of that in-app guide tool and everything we're going to do. I just ask, can we have a calendar to make sure what segments we're starting to just make sure we're not duplicating. Sometimes that can happen if there's too much going on in a silo. Can we have a review process of just like, make sure there's like no typos and everything looks great and the branding is right, which can get off the rails if you have a lot of different people with edit access. Those are pretty easy things to agree to. I think I've been able to get teams to agree to let my team help make sure we're not overlapping, bombarding customers, and have a quality control. Over time, my team campaign managers add value during QA and makes great suggestions. Digital CS can become the center coordinating in-app guides, creating that editorial calendar and customer lifecycle journey. Once that trust is built, I've seen it happen, but I don't recommend immediately being like, we got a new digital CS team and we're taking this in-app tool away from whoever has it today, because that can go wrong.
I've been talking to some product marketers or product manager, and they have different opinions about the in-app, how it's disturbing their way. So what's your opinion about when is the best timing for those in-app show up?
It's a great question. And I think it's a very healthy debate. I think there is a time and a place for interrupting customers' workflow to tell them crucial things. But as much as possible, we should not interrupt their workflow. It should be more a beacon or a hotspot model where they're opting in to click on it if they want. By interrupting the workflow, I mean, you'd have a slide out or bubble appear on the page on top of what they're trying to do. I totally agree. We shouldn't be interrupting them too much. This is why I think it's important to know your customer journey and for active usage to be the goal. If it's just like the latest feature release, I think that's generally a bad idea to interrupt their workflow just to announce a new button. But if it's part of a nurture campaign to increase usage at this, or trying to make them aware of something, it's a huge unlock for the admin. I did a campaign like that. They add the head at Adobe where we needed to help with this skill. In those cases, it can be worth it to interrupt them a bit. Internally, we have to be on the same page. This is worth it, or we're going to try it as an experiment because it's going to lift usage, not because we bombard them with everything.
We've been talking about surveys as well. And we noticed that in-app surveys are actually more responsive than the email ones.
Which makes sense.
Since SMS is popular in B2C. Do you see that rising in B2B?
Oh, that's a good question. I for sure have seen it rise in e-commerce, but some great disruptive companies could do it really well.
Yeah.
You would have to do it really well and be super smart and do tons of customer research. I welcome that and really careful about what kinds of data you deploy. I just think so many people would be like, this is okay for my consumer app to be pinging on my phone, but I do not want to be hearing from the softwares I use at work while I'm eating dinner. As folks try to pioneer that, we're going to have some resistance to get over. How do we really make it so our users and our customers welcome that message? What I am passionate about is using a good data tool for digital. Use an in-app guide tool. There are lots to choose from. If possible, use an email tool combined with an in-app tool. There's always going to be challenges like coordinating with marketing on what tool they're using and product tool. That conversation is different in every company. Make sure you have a good data tool your folks can self-serve on, like a product analytics tool or dashboards built by your BI team. Otherwise, you're flying blind. That's where you need to be careful.
It's come down to all the data.
I'm constantly looking at data, and all my people are constantly looking at data to decide where to focus. When I hear of folks trying to do digital CS without good data, I don't know how that's working.
Digital CS is not just for a low-touch segment.
How
would you design it for the high tiers?
I believe in personalization in some cases, but I do not believe much personalization is needed from tier to tier. I don't think that the enterprise user coming in an enterprise company tends to have significantly different needs than the new user at a tiny company paying us hardly anything. At the user level, those needs tend to be very similar. Installation for the first time might be different for big companies versus small, but in general, for the air cover type of things, we should be building for digital CS. It's pretty similar across the tiers. I always believe in thinking through, what does my lowest tier or most vulnerable user need? If they don't have a human holding their hands, what do they need to know? And build that experience, and it'll end up helping all your tiers. I've seen that happen where we build something for the lowest tier, launch it to the lowest tier, but once we roll it out to all the tiers, it helps all the tiers just as much. Like, the reality is that a user of an enterprise company likes self-serving a lot. Some do, right? Some don't, but larger percentages of folks at every type of company want to self-serve. At Heap, we specifically wanted to have emails just to that tier of customers that looked like they were coming from their CSM that were automated. The reason for that was that we had a very high ratio, 1 CSM to 700 accounts. And we were trying to be proactive instead of completely reactive. So you can be reactive of when they raise their hand, but we wanted to hatch them when the account was going through a risk moment. We knew lots of them were not raising their hands. They were slowly dying and not renewing with us. The risk moments that we identified, they're not rocket science. We heard this from our renewal managers. What are the reasons they're not renewing? Reason number 1 is that the champion or executive sponsor left them and nobody took their place. So we set up an automated email that looks like it's coming from our cold CSMs whenever we get a bounce back from that champion or executive sponsors, that we send it to the others at the account who are actively using, saying, hey, looks like Joe, is that right? Who's the new owner? Can we meet? We'll keep you on track. Another risk moment is usage drops. If it was at least 50% lower in the last 4 weeks, something is wrong, and we immediately reach out. So another one was drop in health score. Like, what is going on? We got to talk to them. You could set that type of trigger for every tier to make sure you're proactive with all your customers. But in a world where we had such a high ratio for our lowest tier, it was essential to set up that specifically for the lowest tier.
I think those are the moments that matter. Catch it. And it's impossible to catch 700 accounts.
Use the data to see how they're doing, or a percentage of them would take us up on it and schedule a meeting. And it was great.
Well, what are some your non-negotiable metrics, would you say, for digital CS?
It's exactly what we talked about earlier, Emma. It is active usage and it is health score. Totally non-negotiable. Like, I gotta have one or the other of those, or like, what is digital CS even doing? Or you gotta have a quick renewal cycle where we can quickly see the impact of our campaigns on renewals.
What is the most exciting thing for you in digital CS?
I think this is such an exciting time to be in digital CS, and I'm so grateful that this is where I am, because the industry so desperately needs us. Everybody's trying to figure out how to serve customers at a lower cost and trying to figure out how to do digital CS well. I feel super excited and privileged to be at this moment. I want to be part of helping us as an industry figure out what's next. What does a really good digital CS practice look like? I've discovered some of it, but I'm still discovering more of that recipe for success. I'm super excited to be part of that and to see more companies embrace this digital model and the way that the digital and the human to complement each other really beautifully.
How do you keep yourself focused?
I keep myself focused by focusing on the one KPI we're trying to lift. I get pings and requests from every team in the company. My direct reports get that as well. We just need to stay laser focused. There are 100 things we could do this quarter. What do we actually think are our big bets that are going to lift active usage this quarter? What does the business need from us? What do the customers need from us that we haven't built yet? That's what helps me stay focused, maybe later, to the things that are great ideas, but we don't think they're going to have the highest impact now. So yeah, having that really helps me. I need to check Slack at certain times, get it done in batches, and not be hearing about every single thing going on at my company, and be able to just focus. That's important for being strategic in digital CS.
Yeah.
Some of them are going to move the needle more. I love the cross-functional nature of what I do, and I love for teams come to me with ideas. To me, that means like the company seeing the value of digital CS, like our colleagues are seeing ways we can partner. I love it. it's amazing to say, let's consider that next quarter because we have too many good ideas.
Girl, where can people find you?
I'm on LinkedIn. Please follow me and link with me. I also have a website, hollygoodliffe.com, that articulates lots of stuff. I've written my framework of tips I walk companies through just because I love sharing expertise from this work.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'll link her website in the comment. Thank you.